First-person exploration, also known as walking simulator, though click right here if you want to know why I think that name is stupid. The genre's gained popularity in recent years, though considering the wider gaming public, it's still relatively niche. It's one of my very favorite genres, however, and I've been playing a ton of them recently. I didn't want to make a whole review for each one, so I thought I'd try something a little different and give you 5 reviews in as many minutes. Let's get started! Perhaps the most surprising thing about Corpse of Discovery was its mixed review score on Steam. A lot of that probably had to do with technical issues that seem to have been largely resolved since launch, but apparently a lot of people just plain didn't like it. If you're looking just for a video game, you might feel the same way, but if you're looking for an interactive story with some gameplay elements, I don't see how you can go wrong here. Going in, I did not expect to find such a deep allegory, and the game really made me have some feels. It was often beautiful and often terrifying, and often quite funny in a very Portal sort of way. The story was compelling enough that I had to stay up late and push through the entire thing in one sitting, though to enjoy it, you've got to be pretty into the surreal and the abstract. It certainly wasn't without its flaws. I did more running around than I should have had to. Missing a platform or quote-unquote dying multiple times could be frustrating. The ending was much too long considering the direction it took. But the game really said something about life, which is fairly rare to do effectively. It made me feel profound sadness and longing and wonder, and that's worth struggling through a few awkward gameplay mechanics if you ask me. It's really unique, and it's got a slick presentation and pretty good voice acting to boot. I give Corpse of Discovery a 6 out of 7. I'll say that Master Reboot was pretty good, though weak in some areas. It's got a pretty low-budget feel, though it's clear that the developers at least tried to present the limited graphics in a stylistic and interesting way. It's immediately bogged down by some 2D art that feels a bit too amateurish and kind of breaks the immersion. The game has you moving through a hub world and visiting dreamlike areas from various points in a person's life, piecing together the story as you go. I enjoyed how each new area is a bit of a mystery. Often you're stuck performing some sort of mildly tedious task, and sometimes things can devolve into outright frustration. The surreal imagery and ever-changing nature of the game kept me moving forward though, and kept me curious enough to see things through even if it wasn't always terribly fun. There are enough creepy moments and enough of an ominous atmosphere that some might even argue that this is partially a horror game, and while the somewhat low production values can sometimes detract from this mood, I still enjoyed it. You'll find yourself most frustrated when you have to do annoying platforming sequences again and again, which grinds things to a halt. The very last part of the game in particular requires a long series of easily botched tasks, which was just awful. Overall, Master Reboot's worth a few bucks if you're into this sort of thing. 4 out of 7. Kairo was a surprising delight. It's an incredibly simple game with no controls other than moving and jumping. The graphics are very minimalist, the world being comprised almost entirely of blocks and flat plains. There's no dialogue or any story extending beyond your own interpretation of what you're witnessing. Yet somehow I found myself engrossed, thanks mostly to the wonderful atmosphere and sound design. The world is moody and strange, and while the graphics are simple, they're smooth and always pleasant. This was one of the first games of this type that I played, and from the very first screen, I was caught up in the mystery of its world. Kairo isn't just about the feel though, as it's got a large number of puzzles to solve. Your proximity to something is the only way to interact with it, but despite its limits, I found such a simple interface to be surprisingly refreshing. A lot of the puzzles were pretty easy, some were a bit frustrating, a good few had me staring at them for ages or looking up the answer. A pretty alright spread for such a game, truth be told, with the fun far outweighing the less fun. The game's hardest puzzles are its optional ones, so me like that! Considering it's $5 and frequently goes on sale for only $1, Kairo's a steal for fans of this type of game. 6 out of 7. Dream is close to being something cool, but it never lives up to its potential. The atmosphere's alright, and I like the idea of diving into a bunch of dreams, but the complete package leaves a lot to be desired. You'll find a few surreal and interesting moments, but mostly it involves solving some intensely tedious puzzles in needlessly vast environments, and most of the time your objective is not clear. I mean, I don't think I've ever had to look up what I was supposed to do so many times with one game, and even when I knew what to do, it could still be a massive chore to solve a puzzle. In fact, by the third and final act, monotony was so frequent and oppressive that I wanted to quit. Not that I would have missed much though, because Dream's got a story that doesn't really lead anywhere, with an ending that isn't really an ending. Like, seriously, the credits don't even roll, and I needed a guide to tell me that I basically reached the end. In a way, I can appreciate that the game is more about providing a big world to explore and a lot of stuff to collect, but I was flustered more often than I was enchanted. I'm sure someone with a lot more patience than me could potentially find this whole formula invigorating, but it was all a bit too cryptic for me, with too many frustrating moments. If this sort of mysterious playground sounds like it's up your alley, I don't doubt that you could really enjoy this game, but it didn't do it for me. 3 out of 7. I can't say much about Verde Station without spoiling it, so for a synopsis, I'll just say that you're alone on a space station. Like Gone Home, it's a purely story-driven experience where you only get as much as you put in. It's the genre in its purest form, and as such, it absolutely requires that you're patient enough to just explore and take in every little detail. And I'll tell you right now, I thought this game was phenomenal. It's another one of those games proving that video games are a unique storytelling platform, and I love the fact that today's indie landscape allows for experimental stuff like this. It only took me an hour or so to reach the end of Verde Station, and if it's got one flaw, it's that the concept was so cool that I wanted to see it expanded on even more. The length did, however, allow me to immediately jump back in and see if there was anything I missed, which was fun. Again, I can't say or show more without spoiling it, so to fill out some time, here's some stock footage of baby chicks. Verde Station is first-person exploration at its finest, and it gets a perfect score from me. Well, there you have it. 5 FPEs ranging from eh to yeah. Whoa, eh or yeah, that could be its own thing. Anyway, are you into this genre, or do you think it's boring and stupid? Let me know how wrong or right you are down in the comments. Later, folks!